Hey everyone, my name is Kaylee. Thank you so much for being here. I am a quilter, illustrator, artist, all of the above from North Carolina. And yeah, thank you for being here on the channel, whether you are a new viewer, a returning one. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I mean it every time I say it. Here on the channel, you can expect a couple of different things. Most things are sewing related. I'm a quilter by nature, so that's what you can expect from me here a majority of the time. But I also like to post sewing vlogs where I'm kind of like doing sewing amidst my daily life and taking you along with me. I also have a lot of other niche hobbies as well. So chances are you and I will have something in common, most likely. So if that sounds appealing to you, feel free to stick around. Today's video is a little bit different for me. It's not a typical sewing vlog like I love, but it's more of a self-induced sewing challenge, I suppose. Challenge loosely, but basically I'm putting myself in kind of a time frame to see how much work I can get done. And the reason I'm doing this is because I am sort of in between projects right now. If you have seen any of my other more recent videos, you would know that I'm working on something called my Stream of Consciousness quilt. I don't have a title for it yet, so I've been calling it my sock quilt. That is a really big project that I've been working on since almost about March, probably is when I started it, beginning of March. So it's been a lot of work and effort into the making, and I'm almost finished with the quilt top, but I find that I'm in this liminal space with it where it's not quite finished yet. I know it's not finished. I don't know what I want to add next, but I'm just kind of in that in-between space where I'm waiting for the last couple of details to come to me before I commit to actually quilting it. And because of that, the idea of starting a new big project right now just doesn't seem to be the smartest decision. Like, creating a whole new concept, a whole new color palette, a whole new size to work with, like the parameters of that just feel a little overwhelming. On top of that, I am also in a virtual quilting class. I'm in Heidi Park's 2026 quilting class for the year, and I've been in it since January. And right now we are currently discussing working in a series and creating a body of work that can all kind of live together. And under that umbrella, she discusses the idea of framed quilts, which I have never done before. But it is a technique that she developed where she basically is stretching a quilt around a canvas and creating a smaller work typically than like a 5.5 by 5.5, which is what I'm working with now. And I'll go ahead and link that framed quilt class below because it does exist on its own outside of this quilt making year-long class. But I thought that that would be a really fun little way to challenge myself in between projects to create a smaller body of work that can all exist either together or separately. The idea of it as a whole just really is appealing to me at this moment, so I've decided to go on this endeavor. And for the fun, like, challenge element of it, like I said, challenge is very loose, but I would really like to see how many of these small quilts I can make in about 10 days. So it is currently Monday, so we have all of this week and then kind of like towards the middle of next week to work on this and see what I can come up with. And I'm not much of a quantity sewist, so the idea of kind of turning my brain into something where I can create something that's smaller, more accessible, easier to piece together, quicker to piece together rather, is really appealing. A couple of things that we need to get started are you will need some canvases, and I am not going to show you how to stretch these quilts onto canvases, but you will need them at some point in the venture. Again, I will link that framed quilt making class below, so if you want to learn how to do that properly, it'll be available to you. So I ordered some 6" by 6" canvases and 8" by 8", so working very, very small. And I actually used to work pretty small in the beginning of my quilting journey. I'll put my first quilt right here. It's about the size of my hand. I created it in an afternoon. I really had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to piece a little quilt together, and that's what I came up with. So it's kind of like I'm going back to my roots in a sense, but just in a different way. That was my first quilt, and then after that I made a couple of other smaller quilts too. They were about 12 inches by 12 inches, and they weren't framed, so they just kind of existed as a wall hanging. So we'll need some canvases or some frames, whatever you have available to you. And then we will need some cotton batting at some point. I went ahead and pre-cut all of these to 6 by 6 inches, and then I will cut some more out later on that are 8 by 8 inches. We'll just see how far we get with this. I don't know if I will go through all of these 6" by 6" canvases. I have 7 of them, which to me seems like a lot at the moment, so we will see what happens. Perhaps most importantly, you will need some materials to sew with. So I would encourage you to use scraps for this because we are making such small itty bitty quilts. We will need small itty bitty pieces of fabric, and I know if you're a sewist or if you're a fiber artist, honestly, any kind of arts in general, but I am sure that you have a bunch of bits and bobs, scraps, things that you don't know what to do with, but you can't let go of. So I feel like this project would be perfect for that. Luckily, I have a whole bag of scraps right here. So with my sock quilt, I have been getting a lot of interest in that quilt with the color story that it provides, with the subject matter, with the imagery, all of those sorts of things. So I thought it would be a great place to start, where I am using scraps from that quilt that I've been collecting for the last couple of months in this Ziploc bag here, but using scraps from that quilt to make a series of mini quilts that echo that sock quilt, if that makes sense. That way it is a bite-sized version of a quilt that is already receiving a lot of love, and I honestly feel like it's a more accessible version as well. I mean, I love a giant 5.5 by 5.5 art quilt, but I realize that it is not everybody's nature to gravitate towards such big artistic objects. So now that I have all my supplies, my first plan of action here is to sort my scraps, which I've started doing. You can probably see back here. And I think the best way is to dive in. There's multiple ways we can do this. We can patchwork, we can embroider, we can do traditional kind of quilt piecing. I am not a traditional quilter by any sense of the word. I am much more free-spirited with how I like to piece my fabrics together. And if you haven't seen my This Is How I Hand Piece My Quilts video, I'll go ahead and link that below, and you can get a better insight into how I piece things together. It's kind of like a puzzle piecing method. It's a very choose your own adventure style of piecing and quilt making, but it's one that really speaks to me. So I think initially I will probably start with that and just see where it takes me and where we end up. But yes, with all of that being said, let's go ahead and not put off starting any further. Let's just dive into it, I think. I think the easiest way to do this is just to get started and like rip the band-aid off, because I'm a little nervous. I don't know what it is about working on a small scale that kind of makes me uneasy, but it kind of feels a little bit like you need to put a lot of intention and consideration into a small piece to make it effective, which is probably just my own imposter syndrome talking to me and being mean, but it's something that I'm thinking about. So I'm not gonna quilt directly onto the batting for this one. I might do that in the future, but just to like keep myself contained with the size that I need to make, I'm gonna keep this here. And immediately upon looking through my scraps, I just went through my bag that I showed you, and I pulled out all of the smallest bits. So these are all different kinds of shapes and sizes, very random little assortments. Most of them are just little snippets, kind of like this one, or little strips like this one. And I was immediately attracted to this piece in particular because this was the piece of fabric that I first started with when I was making that Stream of Consciousness quilt top. It's kind of like this chartreusey olive green with a embroidered cross pattern on top. I don't know if you can see that amongst all the little threads here. But this is the first fabric that I used for that quilt top, so I thought it would be kind of sweet or like endearing to do that again. And this is just the piece that it came in. It has a little bit of a little cut here, but nothing that we can't problem solve. And so I kind of just laid that there just to see what was happening. And then I really love this like gingham fabric. I have a couple different varieties of it. So I have, you know, this gingham, I have this gingham, I have a bigger check gingham, which is like this one here. This isn't true gingham, I guess, but you kind of get what I'm saying, the checkered kind of vibe. And I like this little edge that we have here. So I laid that there, kind of like so. And then I, you know, figured we needed to attach something here that would kind of give this a little bit more bulk to reach the side. So I thought, you know, maybe that would be kind of interesting, like snip this off, attach it to this piece. That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm also going to be going to the iron here to iron these down, because I'm sure your scraps are like mine, where they kind of end up in these like twisted sort of shapes, which are a little bit problematic to work with and just make it a little bit more difficult to visualize the actual shapes that they're making, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna go back and forth here. I think I might put you in time-lapse mode just to see what we end up with and where I'm at in, let me say, let's give me like 30 minutes. I'm gonna set a timer even just to see where I'm at in 30 minutes. So I've decided to do 30 minutes because that's my magical number. So we're gonna go ahead and start the timer for 30 minutes. There we go. I knew my station would get very messy with this process, but here we go. So you just saw me trim some of the excess away. So we were at now 6 and 6, like 6 by 6. I didn't cut these little tags off here because they contain our seams and I don't want to unravel those. Look at this. This is our first composition. I really like how it turned out. It did not go the way that I was expecting. I thought this was going to be our focal point here, and it still is, but I thought it would take up I thought it would go from edge to edge here. But as you can see, I decided to add some extra stuff under here. And then added another band to kind of coincide with this gingham here. And that was put together in half an hour, which I think is awesome. So if anything, we still have to quilt it. I think maybe what it could use is something that's a little bright, like this bright white fabric, or this was the grid linen that I picked up in New York City. Otherwise, I have like little pieces of bright white here. But yeah, even some teeny tiny like circle applique might be kind of nice in this like kind of whitish color, or even this muslin, like I mentioned. So I think I might add that to it, but otherwise that's done. That's our first little quilt top. And I'm excited to see how it transforms after quilting. I'll probably add some of those appliques tonight and quilt it just so it's all done and ready to go. And we can say that we finished one on day one.
Typhoid fever. First I knew it days ago.
Good morning, friends. It is a Wednesday morning. It has been a couple of days. Like I said, we started this 2 days ago, so it is day 3 of creating little quilts. During the week, I do not have as much available time for sewing, so I knew this was going to happen where I slowed down a little bit. But I still feel like quite a bit of progress has been made. So I finished my first little quilt top. This is what she looks like. As you can see, we have our quilting stitches, and then I did add a little bit of embellishment up here, nothing too crazy, but that is our first one, and it will eventually be stretched and wrapped around a little canvas such as this one. I love how this one turned out. I think it was like a great start to this project, and I love the composition of it. I love the colors. I love the scraps that we used, and then the little bit of embroidered embellishment too. I just love everything about it. And then I had this idea to do, I'm really into grid and checkerboard, so I had this idea to do a series of pleats going in different directions to kind of create this like checkerboard pattern, and I wasn't sure how it would work, or to create like a grid pattern, sorry. And I wasn't really sure how it would work, like if the squares be all lopsided or what have you, but surprisingly they turned out pretty well. So this pleating took quite a bit of time for me, more time than I think I anticipated, but the result of it turned out really well, so it doesn't feel like any time was wasted, and it was an experiment that I definitely wanted to try. And once the grid was complete, I have started appliquing these pink squares down because I have some checkerboard, like pink checkerboard on my bigger quilt. So I wanted again to echo that on a smaller scale. And I think it looks pretty good. So you can kind of see our grid pattern amongst the applique. I love the little peekaboos of thread that you see kind of in between. And I originally planned for this to be another 6-inch canvas, but I believe this is going to be turning out to be an 8-inch canvas, because with the 6-inch canvas, it kind of cuts off like halfway through. So I think I'm going to bump it up to 8. And luckily, my 8-inch canvases came in yesterday, so we have those as well, just to give you a little size comparison. Really into how that's looking. Like I said, this one has taken me a bit longer. I worked on it yesterday morning, yesterday evening, this morning, and this is where I'm at. So I don't imagine I will be making many more of this style in this period of time, but it's great to know for the future because I really love how this looks so far. I think once it's quilted and once it's stretched, it'll have a lot of gorgeous texture, and that'll be really nice for such a small, intimate piece to have that kind of level of intricacy. But yes, that is where we are for now. Like I said, during the week, I don't have a ton of sewing time available to me, so I will not be sewing this evening. We actually have puppy class for Bentley, which is our seeing eye dog in training. So I will be going to that and hopefully picking this back up tomorrow. I would love to finish the rest of these little applique squares tomorrow, so then we can move on to other ideas that I have brewing in my head for the end of the week. But that is the plan. Just wanted to check in and let you know what I was up to, and that I'm still working and still feeling like this is such a correct way of sewing for me at this moment. It feels like really good to be doing this. Good morning, friends. Hi. It is sunshine hour again in the studio, and honestly, it is very tricky to film in here when it's so bright, but like I can't not. Like, you know, so you see my hand all blown out there. It can be really tricky to film in here when it's so bright, but I wanted to check in with you. It's been a few days. We are about 5 days into this process now, and I've made some really fun progress, even though I haven't been filming so much. It has been a really, really busy week with Bentley. He is more booked and busy than I am. He has puppy class, he has play dates, he has a birthday party today that we're hosting at the house, so not his birthday party, his friend's birthday party. So he's just a really busy guy at the moment, and so in turn I've been busy carting him around to places. Like, I don't have kids, but it sometimes feels like I have one with Benny and his busy schedule. But like I said previously, I still have been doing a lot of sewing, and I've been very productive. I'm so happy with how these are turning out. So I initially was working on that grid patterned one, and then that one that we pieced together, and I had them all set aside and ready to go. And I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to stretch everything on canvases at the end, or if I kind of wanted to take bits and pieces as I went. And I decided on the latter, so I stretched these two on canvas, and I think they look so good. I love how they turned out. This is the grid one that we were working on, or that you were seeing me work on. So you can, oh my goodness, this little lighting. But yeah, you can see all these like fun textures, and because I did have this fabric here verge onto the sides, it is a little bit puffier than I think typically you would see. This is what the back looks like. Yeah, really pleased with this one. And then here is the other one, which I really, really love. It's gonna be hard for me to want to part with this one. Just, I think because it was like the first one and I love the composition of it. And what's really fun about these is if you turn them, the composition like completely changes. So depending on how you want to hang it up, you can really just like choose your own adventure. But I prefer this one in this orientation. But yeah, these are so fun. It was really nice to see them finished. So I'm really glad that I chose the route of just deciding to stretch these ones, just to get like a taste or a flavor for what I can expect. And again, so glad that I did that. And I have them just like stacked on my desk. So even just seeing these little like glimpses and sneak peeks of the quilt tops too, I just imagine having like a whole stack of them at the end of this, which is really exciting. And then on top of stretching those, I'm also still making little quilt tops. So this is one that I sewed and has been quilted. So the composition itself is more of that cross kind of pattern that is on my quilt top, my bigger quilt top. And because that was very simple, I decided to go a little bit more detailed with the quilting. So I did this like very loosely inspired grid pattern for the quilting. You can kind of see it on the back too, where I have like white stitching and black stitching in different blocks. But I think this will be a really, really fun texture. Sorry, it's so hard to show you because of the lighting, but hopefully that's a little better. So yeah, really fun texture. I think this will look great once it's stretched on a canvas as well. So I made this one, and then two that I've pieced together but are not quilted yet are this one here. And this is one where you can really change the orientation and it changes the whole composition. So love that one. I definitely want to do some embellishing stitching on it. It's kind of similar to the other patchwork piece that we did with the infinity sign and the little pluses. I would like to do some stitching on this one before I quilt it. And then this one, this is the last one that I have for now. So these little squares are going to turn into sawtooth stars, which is something that's featured on my larger quilt top, and is also a quilt block that I'm quickly realizing is really important to me and one of my favorites to look at and to make. So it felt pertinent to have a little baby quilt to kind of honor that. So these are just squares now, but I'm going to be adding some little sawtooth triangles around them. And I'm about to head out to my quilty group. We meet up once a week and I have not been for honestly almost like 2 months, I think, at this point. So I'm gonna head out and go see my girls today and bring these along with me to work on. And depending on how long these take to stitch on and quilt, I might start on my 6th mini quilt. I have a plan for that one, but I'm not really sure how to do it. So I think the best plan of action is just to dive into it. What I've really noticed about these is it's fun to like play with different techniques, and if you've been thinking about trying something, to try it on a smaller scale first is really nice. For example, I have not started quilting my larger quilt yet, but one thing that I was toying with was the idea of quilting it in kind of a grid pattern such as this, like over the entire quilt top with different black and white squares of stitching. And before committing to the full quilt top, I thought it would be nice to try it on a smaller scale. For example, this one, and I really enjoy how it turned out. So just something to think about. I'm definitely kind of playing as I'm making these. And with that being said, the next technique I would like to try for the 6th one of these small quilts is basically a strategy where you are taking scraps and you're kind of just like stitching them together in a long strip, and then you're breaking that strip down eventually and piecing it together that way. I think that would be really great because I have a lot of teeny tiny scraps that come out of this, because as you can probably imagine, when you are stitching these pieces of fabric together, like even this piece I could trim off here and then I'd have like a new little scrap. There's this phrase in like the sewing and quilting world that when you work with scraps, you create more scraps, and I'm definitely experiencing that here, but it's just kind of fun to think about how to problem solve them and use them. Yeah, that's where we are with these. So I technically have like 5 of these mini quilts, and stretching them really took no time at all. I wasn't sure how long that would take. So you know, it's basically like getting the pieces together and be ready to stretch. So that's like the longest part. Yeah, we basically have 5, and we kind of have like a whole other whole week of doing this. So I'm really excited to get some work done today and see what we make together.
Yeah. So it's like you can see like my palette. Scramble. I love that. No, I love it. A little bit of gray and black.
It's amazing.
Thank you. Do we get
Enjoy.
a Swedish duck cleaning?
Good girl, Posey. Oh, yay, Rosie. Well, Posey, that's It's first that never happens. He's like, can I have another?
Seconds, please.
Yay, Rosie.
Birthday cake. Hi everyone, it is the next day. I had such a great time at Quilt Group and I got a lot done yesterday. I didn't check in with you guys, but I just wanted to show you what I've been up to and what I finished since we last chatted. I have finished my little sawtooth star piece that I wanted to work on. So this is going to be kind of like my neutral piece for the collection. I went ahead and quilted it as well, so it is just very charming. I think this will look great once it is stretched on canvas, and I plan to use this kind of like crisscross chartreuse green colored fabric for the border for this one, so I think it'll really make it pop. So that one is ready for a border and for canvas. And then I went ahead and quilted this one as well. So this one was all pieced together, but I really wasn't sure what the quilting on this was gonna look like, and so I just kind of freeballed it. I just had fun with it. I used my favorite color thread for these little crisscrosses kind of throughout this little quilt top here, and then I did some circular shapes with the quilting as well. So I definitely embraced minimal quilting for this one, which I think it works, and it kind of creates like a hidden focal point amongst these little crosses here, which I really enjoy. That one is finished and also ready to be stretched. As far as my little patchwork piece that I mentioned to you that I wanted to get started on, last night I was watching Westworld with Emily and I was trying to patchwork something together and I was too focused on the show itself to also focus on patchworking something. So I like absolutely hated whatever I made. It just was not really working, not very interesting to me. So I sat down this morning again and reworked it a little bit, and this is where we're at currently. So as you can see, I still have some quilt batting here, but this just gives me a reference for figuring out what I need to fill in or seeing what I need to fill in for the rest of it. So we just have two little pieces of patchwork here that are in their respective places, and I just need to fill in the middle part here. So that is my plan for my lunch break here. I am going to go ahead and sit down and hopefully figure this out, and I would also like to attach the little borders to these 3 tops so I can stretch them on canvas, and then we'll have 5 completed quilt tops. That's amazing to me. That is the plan for this lunch break afternoon. We'll see how much I get done. And then the rest of the week, I still have quite a few ideas up here about what I would like to do and what I'd like to make. After these are all stretched, I believe I only have 1 or 2 of the 6-inch canvases left, which is crazy. Because I remember at the beginning of this video, I was like, I don't know if I'll get that far or get through them, but it looks like I'm on my way to doing that very soon here. So once I get through those, I will definitely move on to the 8-inch canvases and see what we can come up with. But so far, I really, really enjoy this petite size. I think they just make the sweetest little quilt tops and like cute little pieces of art. That is the agenda for now. I apologize for not really checking in yesterday, but after I met with Quilty Group, Bentley had some friends over for a birthday party for his friend Grover. Grover turned a year old, so we had a little birthday party, and then after that I was zonked and, like I said, tried to do some patchworking and it just didn't work out. So I figured it would be better to check in today and let you know what I was up to. I honestly don't remember the last time I checked in with you, like the last day. I'm trying to recall. I think I had a couple of quilt tops ready to go or that they were like assembled, but they weren't quilted yet. But I'm excited to reveal. Look at all these little quilts. Look, we have 6 now. So I've been busy. You've seen this one and you have seen this one, but I have since gone ahead and attached to this guy. I remember I showed you this one. So this is on a linen kind of frame, a little stretch situation. And then I have this one as well. I love this one. It's another little patchwork piece. These little sawtooth stars, which seem to be a crowd favorite amongst my friends that I've polled. But yeah, there's that one. And then this one is probably my favorite. This is the one I think I will keep out of all of them. So yeah, I actually like it in this orientation better. But this is a nice little patchwork piece as well. So recent developments are that things are going great, and I think for this video I've mostly just been checking in with you and not doing so much like actual sewing together. So I wanted to do another patchwork piece with you and hang out with you this evening. But before we get to that, I just want to make a couple notes on this. Really having a lot of fun. Like, this is so much fun. I went ahead and ordered more 6-inch canvases because I just really enjoy this size, and I only have 1 canvas left. So ordered some more 6-inch canvases, but after we go through this next 6-inch canvas, I'm going to move on to the 8-inchers to see if I can get a couple of done by Friday. Maybe like 2 of them, because I still have some ideas that I'm pondering in my head that I would like to execute on fabric. But really enjoying this smaller size. I find that the creativity and the ideas for this just come pretty naturally and come together pretty quickly. They're kind of like little trading cards. They're really awesome. So yeah, I'm so glad that I decided to go on this endeavor. It's really been a lot of fun for me and a good switch up from the everyday for me and my quilt making practice. To stretch all of these quilt tops around the canvases, I've been using this stapler, which I have nothing to really complain about with the stapler. It works as it should. It's a great heavy duty stapler. But with that being said, I did order an electric one because this one is slowly but surely wearing a hole through my palm, because it does take quite a bit of strength and pressure to get this to go. In order to save my hand in the future and to do a lot less wear and tear on my body, I did order an electric one that's corded that I can just plug in, and we will see how that goes. It's really no complaints about it other than I am a Whitney Hut Jr. and my hand hurts after using it like several times back to back to back. So, but yeah, I think that's all I have to update on for these. And I just realized that I've been covering my mic with these little quilts the whole time, so hopefully you could hear me for that. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and assemble another little patchwork piece together. I think that would be really fun. I do remember that I had this angle the last time that I was filming, and I do quite like it. I think it's pretty good for demoing and showing you what I'm doing. Yeah, hopefully. You'll have to let me know. I can do like an over-the-shoulder situation, but something about this seems a little bit easier and maybe better to see. I'm just set up on my workstation here. I have a ton of scraps on this side of my desk. I have my sewing tools on this side, and then over yonder here I have my little baby iron. So while I'm doing this, I can kind of just like roll my chair over, iron seams down, and come back, which seems to be really good for me. Here is what my little patchwork is looking like, and this was just with 45 minutes or so of play this morning. What I enjoy about this style of patchworking is that it is very like puzzle piecey, like my other quilting style methods are concerned, but instead of layering things and kind of like configuring them in such a way, I'm actually sewing all these seams together. So it's a little bit different for my brain to try and figure out, but it has been a fun exercise nonetheless. But let me go ahead and grab my other little mini patchwork quilt so I can show you it. So this is what this one turned out like. You can see like all of these seams are sewn together instead of layered on top of one another. Just a different way of doing things. But I've had this one set up behind you so I can kind of reference it while I've been working. And I find that to have been pretty helpful. And I have everything here just tacked down with pins. So if I start removing these, you can see that this one is a piece by itself. This one is a little tiny little patchwork piece. It's 4 different pieces of fabric, but you can see those 2 ones in the center are so small This is a patchwork section, so I've started like attaching some things together, but everything else is very... I'm just playing here though and seeing how I'd like things to sit. Nothing is like super set in stone. So let me just go ahead and put these back into place and see what I like and what I want to do next. Okay, for this patchworking method, I've definitely found that I like to have a bigger square of solid fabric, at least somewhere in the quilt top. In this one, there's like 2 or 3, I would say. But for this one so far, I just have that larger chartreuse piece. And what I think would be the easiest way to go about this would be to create something that can attach all to here and then create a little window of fabric that it can attach here. So then these two can just marry together, if that makes sense. So I think what I'm going to work on is finding a way to assemble these pieces together in a way that makes sense and that looks kind of cool. I'm not really sure what that looks like yet, but I'm excited to figure it out together. So let's just dive into it. I think working like up will probably be our easiest method. And what I see that would be the easiest to attach first are these 2 pieces here. So I'm going to go ahead and just pin these together and just give them a little sew down. And one thing to consider is your seam allowance, because you'll lose quite a bit of size as you're sewing these little itty bitty pieces together, because their seam allowances will just eat up fabric. So I've found that I'm usually adding little things that I didn't consider before because I will need to fill up more space. And I'm not sewing anything down to this cotton batting that's below the quilt top here. I'm just using it as a frame of reference for the size that we are working towards. Now that that is sewed together, I'm just going to go ahead with normal sewing practice and iron this seam open with my little baby iron off to the right. Okay, and now we are back, and I don't know if you can see this, but I have a little bit of negative space on this side. If I wanted to attach it here, I have a little bit of negative space on this side if I wanted to attach it here. And another thing I'm starting to notice is that there is a fun little curve on this small piece of fabric here. So it might be kind of fun to turn this into a right angle with a little piece of scrap. Maybe this dark pink would be kind of fun to use. I'm just gonna cut a little square of it. If you don't know this trick, to sew a curve, this is a really, really tiny curve, so keep that in mind. But basically what you want to do is you want to cut your fabric to the curve. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this scrap on top of this scrap and just trace my curve that I have here like this. You can see that. And then I'm going to cut away this information. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this side pretty to pretty and pin it. And you might be asking, how am I supposed to pin this to that? But you do just really need to finagle it, unfortunately. It looks a lot more challenging than it is, but it is pretty straightforward with these smaller pieces. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of finesse this. Usually I like to start in the center and just wiggle it down. And it is much trickier with these smaller little fiddly pieces of fabric, but if you're doing this on a larger scale, it is quite a bit easier. Now that that is pinned very haphazardly, I am going to sew it as fast as I can to get it in place. Okay, now I'm gonna go and iron that open and you will see the magic happen. And as you can see, it is not perfect, but it does get the job done. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to trim this excess fabric so we have like a right-ish angle. It's not gonna be perfect, like I said, but something resembling a right angle is good enough for me. And I do enjoy how these are sort of hugging each other here. So I am going to sew a little strip of fabric on this side to kind of eat up this edge. When we go ahead and quilt this later and attach the edges around, you probably won't even see this seam here. So I typically will use something like a muslin or something that's like not really that visually interesting, because chances are we won't even see it later because it will be covered up by our binding or by the frame for our stretched quilts here. Now with that, we have this piece that fits all nice here. I'm gonna go ahead and sew this piece to this one because this one is still just free floating off the edge. So I'm gonna connect these corners here and just go ahead and get to sewing. And these edges here too are a little wonky, so I'm gonna do my best to just like match up the edges as close together as possible to achieve some wobbly lines, kind of like we did with the curved piece of fabric. If we look at my previous example, you'll see that we have a slight wobble here, which I really, really enjoy. And there's a slight wobble here as well that I enjoy. And that was just done using that same method as before. And here is our finished little piece that we just assembled in the last like 15 minutes. It really does not take that much time once you kind of have like a rhythm and know what you're doing. But I think we have some interesting things going on, like this slight little wobble that you see here. We have this curve in this section here. It's just like the little details that really, I think, make it special. And now what we can do is we can think about how we want to attach this to here. So a couple of options. We can just sew them together as they are now, or we can go ahead and attach this upper corner here to this piece. So then we can again sew something here in this window to here and then flop it over and sew it together that way. I think that is probably the most straightforward way of doing it in my opinion. Okay, I think I have a game plan. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm going to move this over just a smidgen, so it's here, and then do a strip here of this linen, which is down here in this section. And then I'm gonna take this lilac pinky color that I love so much, cut a square of it out, attach it here, and then attach this piece to here and this piece to here, and then sandwich them together like they are two halves. I think that will be the most straightforward way for us to go. I hope that makes sense. That's what I'm thinking. My camera is about to die, so I'm gonna go ahead and hop off camera, let this charge while I do this, and then when we have the two halves ready to be sandwiched together, I will see you again. Okay, I am back. So I have two halves of our sandwich. So I'll show you what I did. I went ahead and attached this piece to this piece and then attached these pieces to this long piece. After I did that, I realized my piece of fabric was way too short to cover my batting, so I added this little fine gingham on the bottom. So he is sitting there. And then for this one, I attached that strip like I said I would. The big block here, and then I attached a little strip up here as well because, again, running into the issue where things are a little bit too short. Now what I need to do is I need to decide how I want to do this because I have a little bit of overhang on either side here. So, I mean, these seams like match up really well like this, and I don't know if I want that. Do you know what I mean? Like I kind of want them to be a little topsy-turvy. I think that is kind of the move. So I want to, I think, just slide this right half up a little bit so our bottom line is still where it should be. And then I'm going to bring this one down a little bit as well so our top line matches up here where it should be. And like that. Does that make sense? So this little piece of fabric will be trimmed off eventually. This pink fabric here will be trimmed off too. But I just don't really want these lines here or these seams on either side to completely match up. Just doing some preventative work there, but it's not like a precise science. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna flip that over like this, and then go ahead and put some pins in. Make sure our edges are all aligned. This is the last seam we will stitch. Hopefully we don't need to add anything else, but time will tell. I'm not even gonna say that. We won't have to add another piece of fabric. Our piece of fabric will be big enough as it is. And I'm gonna do a humble little 1/4 inch seam all the way down here. I'm gonna take our pins out. I'm gonna go ahead and iron this and trim up the extra fabric on the bottom and the top here so it's all even, and then we will do the final reveal and see if it fits on our batting here. All right, it is time for the big reveal. I am nervous. I feel like it's a little too short. Oh my God, no, it is. Dang it. Ugh. Well, actually, this is me just trying to convince myself that it's long enough. Nope, definitely not. So if we go ahead and pull all these this way, you can see that we have a little bit of overhang for the batting. And typically I would just say screw it, but I cannot for this one because I'm very particular about these. So what I'm gonna do is for the final home stretch is I will probably, I think what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna do a little other patchwork piece, like 2 strips sewed together, and then sew them onto here, onto the side so it fits, and then I will go ahead and quilt it. This was not in my master plan. I think this is a lesson that you always need more fabric than you think you do. But otherwise, this is what this is looking like. I do enjoy this patchwork quite a bit. I think it looks very nice. And there's nice even tone of color. There's different shapes in here. I think it's pretty fun and I am enjoying it. So what I think I will do is I think I will hop off camera and I will sew this strip down. I will quilt it and I'll show you how it looks at the end of the evening once I'm done quilting it.
I'm going to transfer all the data and bring it to you. You see this.
know that Teresa's doing it, but there's also someone else doing it.
Hold around so much quilting. It wasn't its fault. It was made up. I can help it. The garden stickiness is
You doing okay?
fine. Thank you.
They're back here. Bring your friend.
This place, the people who work here are nothing. Our interest in this place is entirely in the intellectual property, the code.
Okay friends, I'm here to check in at the end of the video. I'm not gonna front, it's been a couple days. I've already started editing this video. It's been a week since I've made any small quilts, but I stayed true to our timeline and I would love to show you how many quilts I made in 10 days. Is this a good representation of how many quilts we've made? So in total, I have made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mini quilts in 10 days. I think that's pretty good. I also want to note too that I did not sew every day. So I would usually sew like a couple in a day. So this has proven to be a very time-effective process. I've had a lot of fun doing it and I'm excited to incorporate this into my practice moving forward. I'm gonna go ahead and do some B-roll right now of me showing you each of these quilts. They're all very different from one another. I definitely have a couple of preferences for the type of ones that I like to make. I really enjoy the patchwork pieces the most probably, and the one that I'm gonna keep is a patchwork piece. That's not to say that I didn't enjoy every attempt at a mini quilt that I made, but I definitely had some that I preferred to do over others. Each different in their own way. They each have their own little quirks and nuances about them, but they all very clearly exist in the same realm, in the same family, and I love that I get to say I have a collection of small mini quilts based off of a larger piece of work that means so much to me. Like, it's really a really special thing to have and to have made. But yeah, I'm just really tickled with how this whole process went. A couple of things to note are the electric stapler versus the manual stapler is definitely a game changer. I would 100% go for that. It just makes it really easy, really fast, and it does not have any strain on my hand, which is always amazing. And is definitely something that I am glad that I took a chance on, and now we have power tools in the studio, which is really fun to say. So yeah, I feel really grateful for all these little pieces of artwork. I need to document them. I need to photograph them. I need to do all of the things with them. Yeah, the work isn't ended for me in regards to having these all made. I still need to do some documentation on my end just so I have a record of them. in my portfolio. If you are interested in acquiring one of these for yourself, I do plan to put these on my Instagram at some point, probably in the next week. I don't think I'll have it all ready to go by the time this video goes live, but if you want to see these in a closer look or a closer inspection, you can go check them out on my Instagram. I will go ahead and link it below. It always is. And a lot of you have found me on there, which is really fun. I love connecting with people, and I love connecting with people, especially like you, who are probably interested in the same things I am. And no pressure at all, but if you are interested, they will eventually be on my Instagram and available for purchase. Yeah, that is that about these. But yes, this was a really fun video to film and a fun project to endeavor on. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far into the video, I truly appreciate your viewership. It means the world to me. I mean it every time I say it, and I am just really tickled with how this all turned out. It's been a really great project, and I look forward to doing this in the future too. But if you have any questions or comments about these, feel free to drop them down below. I love speaking with y'all in the comments. You all are amazing and just really supportive people and really creative people. So it's great company to have. But yeah, that's it from me for now. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. And until I see you again, I hope you are taking care of yourself wherever you are, and I will see you very, very soon. Okay, bye guys.